At a school Christmas concert, a principal humiliates a student worker by dumping her backpack on stage and accusing her of taking cookies. The new substitute music teacher cuts the mic, shields the girl, and accepts suspension to get her off stage and safe. In the quiet aftermath, small changes ripple through the school as the costs of that moment settle and the girl's hidden caregiving burdens come to light. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hey, where are you tuning in from? Leave your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories reach. Under the bleached gym lights, the principal yanked the grey strap of the girl's backpack and dumped it onto the stage. A clatter, then a slide, coins, a bus pass, a smear of cherry lip balm. The school planner and a cracked plastic clamshell of sugar cookies skidded to the mic stand. He held up a cracked plastic clamshell of sugar cookies like a badge. "These are for the donor reception," he said into the mic, voice booming through the school gym strung with paper chains and a crooked banner that said Christmas concert. He stared at the girl in the cafeteria polo. "We don't take what isn't ours." The bleachers went quiet except for one phone alarm someone forgot to silence. A few parents raised their phones. Behind the risers, the new music sub gripped a loop of cable and stopped breathing. Her kids waited on the risers in antler headbands and tinsel scarves, hands twitching, eyes on the stage. The girl stared at her own shoes like they were going to explain something. The principal pointed the mic at her like a question. The metal chairs on the floor squeaked as people shifted. It was her third day. The district had said, "Let's see how you do through the concert, then we'll talk about a spring contract." She needed the health insurance. Rent was due after New Year's. Her dad's pills made the calendar look like a maze. Her car heater only worked on high, and the kids needed someone to count them in on hark in 2 minutes. She watched the girl swallow hard and stay silent. The principal waited a beat too long. "Apologize," he said, and his jaw clicked. His tie with tiny white snowflakes was crooked. The gym smelled like dust and cinnamon. She stepped into the wash of light and reached for the mic. "That's on me," she said, voice steady into the speaker. She didn't look at the bleachers. She kept her eyes on the girl. "I asked her to take cookies to the green room for the performers. I should have told you." She reached down, picked up the clamshell, and set it back in the bag. The principal's eyebrows tipped up. "You didn't clear." She didn't let him finish. She leaned and slid the main fader down on the soundboard. The speaker sighed, then cut. The gym went real quiet, just air and shuffling and the rustle of paper chains. "We'll cover it," she said to the principal without the amplifier, and she pulled a folded 20 from her back pocket and placed it on the edge of the stage manager binder. "For the cookies, no one is missing anything tonight." She took off her scarf and draped it over the girl's shoulders because the cafeteria polo was thin and her skin had gone pale. The girl didn't move until the woman touched her elbow. "Come on," the woman said. No microphone. She gathered the girl's scattered things with quick hands, bus pass, planner, the coins, and slid them into the backpack without the show and tell. She stood between the girl and the cameras. Then they stepped off the stage. He reached for the mixer. "Turn it back on," he said under his breath now, teeth tight. His day had probably been spread too thin already. Donna's late, the district calendar, the broken stand light, but the gym had stopped watching the stage and was watching him. The principal caught up by the soundboard, voice low now that the speakers were dead. "You don't shut me off. You are a long-term sub, not staff." He had a half-smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You know I can end your assignment tonight." "Then end it," she said, not unkindly. "But not like this." She nodded toward the girl, who was hugging the backpack to her chest like a shield. "I'll walk her to the office." A security guard in a red school jacket took a step closer. The kids on the risers murmured. One of the fifth graders looked at the woman, and she lifted a hand, small signal, then pointed at the pianist, the kid with perfect posture and nerves of steel. He took the cue like a quarterback. The first chord of "Deck the Halls" came out true even without a conductor. The principal watched the pianist's hands, then the bleachers, calculating the moment. He reached for the woman's lanyard. "Give me your badge." She pulled it off and handed it to him. It was a cheap plastic thing with her face too bright. "HR can call me," she said. "I'm not leaving her alone." She gestured to the hallway. He held the badge and looked at it like it was a light switch. "Office," he said to the security guard. "Escort." They walked the hall of trophy cases. The sounds from the gym got muffled, then came back in bits, keys of the piano, a crowd clap. Someone's laugh caught too close to a door. The girl's steps were small. Her fingers were red where she had gripped the strap. In the nurse's office, away from the drum of the bleachers, she found the kettle. She filled it from the sink that hissed and clicked when the hotline woke up. "You don't have to talk," the woman said, more to the air than the girl. She pulled a couple of paper cups and a peach tea bag from her coat pocket. The last one, she'd carried it since fall like a habit. The security guard hovered by the door, looking at the ceiling tiles as if they had plans written on them. The girl kept the scarf tight around her throat. Her hair smelled like fryer oil and apples. She set the backpack down and sat on the vinyl cot with her knees together. She watched the kettle with an intensity usually reserved for stage cues. The woman went to her knees on the floor, not too close. She gathered the scattered things that hadn't made it back into the bag. The planner with a cracked spine, a pencil chewed flat, 3/4 and a nickel, the bus pass with the corners lifting. A tiny photo fell out of the planner of a little boy in a red beanie making a face with his nose squished. She didn't comment. She wiped a smear of frosting off the side of the clamshell with a napkin and slid it into the backpack. The kettle clicked off. She poured hot water into cups and passed one over. The girl wrapped both hands around it, like it mattered. Steam rose. The room smelled like peaches for a second. Were they really for donors? The girl asked finally, voice thin. They were on a table with a sign, the woman said. But you and I both know the performers are the show. She sipped. The hot water was almost sweet and almost nothing. The girl looked at the cup. My brother's been looking at cookies all week from TV. The woman nodded once. Okay. She stood and took 2 paper towels, wet one, and crouched again to wipe a grey streak of stage dust off the girl's knee. The security guard pretended to read a nurse poster about hand-washing. Out in the lobby, a bell jingled when the front door opened and let cold air down the hall. Among the scattered things was a folded notice from County Adult Services with tomorrow's date. Under it, a laminated card that said family caregiver with a barcode. There was a list written on a sticky note. Mom meds 5 p.m. Pick up J from Ms. J. Lee. Return library books. The woman didn't read it twice. She slid it all back into the backpack and zipped it carefully around the broken tooth of the zipper so it would hold. You're not in trouble with me, she said, not sure if that helped anything. She pulled off her gloves and handed them over because the girl's fingers still looked like they had no blood in them. Take these. The security guard's radio crackled, then hushed. He cleared his throat. He says you can sit here through this set, he said to the woman, glancing at the tile pattern again. Then you gotta go sign a paper in the office. Got it? She said. She took a tea and sat on the other cot. The wall clock ticked like it was counting by nickels. The gym audience clapped and whooped after a tag that landed. The kids were okay without her. She hoped they'd breathe between tracks. They sat mostly in quiet. She took out her phone and sent a text to the pianist's mom. You're in charge of bows. Trust you. Then she set the phone face down. The girl's shoulders dropped a little. I didn't mean to make it a thing, she said. I know, the woman said. It was already a thing. She let that sit in the warm room. When the song ended and the next one started, a soft carol, the security guard stepped farther into the hall like he wanted to hear. He was a big man with a soft beanie hat. The woman watched his shoulders relax a touch. When the set was over, the principal's secretary came to the door with a clipboard and a tight smile. We need your badge number for the incident report, she said to the woman. And your keys, if you have any. I already gave the badge, the woman said, and she reached into her coat for her car keys and then stopped. I don't have school keys. She signed where they told her. The pen didn't write until she shook it. As they walked back down the hall, the woman put another 20 by the stage manager binder where the first one still sat, lonely and green. She tucked the clamshell of cookies under the girl's arm. For your brother, she said. Tell him they were meant for the band. He is the band tonight. The secretary's mouth did something like a suppressed laugh and then straightened. I'll escort you out, she said gently, and the woman nodded and lifted her hand to the risers like a salute. The kids were in the middle of silent night, and the room had gone soft. A couple of them were looking at her, and she smiled and mimicked breathe, and their shoulders went down. At the office, they took a lanyard photo and put it in an envelope. HR will call, the principal said, not looking at her, shuffling papers. You're suspended pending review. Okay, she said. He looked tired. His red snowflake tie had loosened. She didn't want to make a speech. She didn't want to fight in front of a Christmas tree made by kindergartners. She walked out under the fluorescent buzz and cold tile and pushed through the heavy glass door. The night bit her ears. She didn't feel dramatic. She felt like her legs would stop if she thought too much. She stood a minute with the girl in the vestibule where the cold sneaks up your sleeves. "You good to get home?" she asked. "Bus," the girl said. She pointed to the card in the clear pocket of her backpack. "Got a transfer." The woman nodded. "I can wait with you until it comes." She glanced at the dying poinsettia on the office counter and the jar of candy canes with only 2 left. She took one and pressed it into the girl's palm for the bus. They stood at the stop, watching their breath, not talking. The cookies sat like stolen gold between them. When the bus lights turned the street bright, the woman stepped back. The girl looked at her like she was checking if it was okay to go. The woman lifted a hand. The scarf sat easy on the girl's shoulders. She got on. In January, a taped sign appeared over the backstage table. "Performer snacks. Take what you need." It was written in thick black marker and underlined twice. No one gave speeches about it. Someone just set out clementines and pretzels and a pile of napkins. At the next assembly, a second adult stood by the mic while the principal spoke. The soundboard stayed on, but there was a quiet between lines that didn't used to be there. The principal's tie was straight. He kept his voice even. The phone cameras still came out, but they pointed down more. The front office put a basket of granola bars by the sign-in sheet with no note. Kids took one and didn't look around like they were doing something wrong. A custodian grinned and passed around hot hands to the patrol at the door when the cold came in nasty. A week later, a small paper bag with a bakery logo waited at the desk for the girl. No card. Inside were 2 gingerbread men with their arms intact, wrapped in wax paper. The secretary slid it across without comment when she signed in for her cafeteria shift. The girl glanced down the hall, then nodded once and tucked it into her backpack. The woman didn't get the spring contract. HR said pending, and then they said budget, and then they stopped saying much at all. She picked up hours at the music store on Main, tuning rental violins and teaching 2 kids to hold a trumpet without chewing on the mouthpiece. On her way to the bus sometimes, she walked past the school. Through the gym windows you could see the string lights still taped up crooked. On a Tuesday she heard one of her warm-ups from the sidewalk, the one with the silly hand motions. The kid who'd played the piano saw her through the glass and lifted his hand without breaking time. On the sidewalk outside, snow feathered down under the yellow street light. She thought about how easy it had been to push that one fader down. She thought about the girl's backpack zipped all the way, the scarf soft against her neck, the cookies safe in a bag that belonged to her now. Inside, the gym lights hummed. Outside, the bus pulled away, tail lights soft in the new snow. She put her hands around her paper cup until her fingers stung and watched a single paper star in the office window wiggle when the heater kicked on.